A great gift. So, good afternoon. Thank you all for coming today. It's great to be with you. As Pat said, my name is Bernie Schwab, and I'm an owner of a payroll company. We're a small payroll company based in Farmington, Minnesota. Like many businesses, people even in this room, we were a startup business 10 years ago. Now we serve about 400 small businesses in this local community and also nationwide. We work with businesses anywhere in terms of size, anywhere from about 150 employees all the way down to 1 employee. It all depends in terms of who the business is. Really, it's the size of our business or our clients are usually about 50 employees and below. So I'm just giving you a little idea about who we are. The two main owners for the business, myself and Terry Johnson. Terry actually, you will not know this, but she started one of the main payroll practices that were based in Minnesota that's national with one of the big national firms. She created it from nothing for them. Literally grew it from nothing to about over 8,500 clients in town, over 100 employees were in town. All of those operations have now dissolved and are gone national and international. But Terry is legitimately an industry expert in the area of small business payroll. And so to give you an idea of the kind of people we are, her husband's an organic farmer in Farmington, Minnesota. It's impossible to move farmers away from the land. They're salt of the earth people. What gives Terry joy is running an operation where she's working with small business owners like a landscaper who's working in the dirt. And all he cares about is working in the dirt. He doesn't care about the details or all of that. That's the kind of client that we'd love to serve. Those that are embedded in their business and need an expert to become their ally and come alongside. And my background was I was 20 years IT. I worked with Hewlett Packard, Compaq. IT outsourcing was my background before we started our business in payroll about 10 years ago. So that's the quick summary of us. I want to talk about a couple different things, but I want to start out with this. The role of payroll. We're a firm believer in the small business community. We have all of our clients are small business. We love working with small businesses. But when you look at payroll, especially in terms of thinking about employees as assets, what you've got to remember is that there's two sides of the coin when you're working through that. One is you have the employer side of payroll as they look at it and all the compliance things that they get to deal with. The other thing is the employee experience, okay? So what I'm going to try to do is balance that discussion as I go throughout my presentation and talk about both sides of the equation and what we see and what's important in it. So I want to talk a little bit about payroll first. For small business owners, when it's working well, this is typically what you'll see the role of payroll in the small business. One, it's how employees are paid. It's just they're paid through this way. This is how they're compensated. Two is, it is a place that if this is going well, that the employer can help increase the employee satisfaction about the business and their work environment. If it's not going well, it will detract quickly. But if it's going well, it's a place where they can feel more comfortable, employees can feel more comfortable working with different employers. And in the small business community, that's a really key factor. Because when you've got an employer with 8 employees, for instance, one of the things that's always running in the back of an employee's mind is, do they have money this week to pay? Am I going to have my salary or I have my income coming out of the business? It's just the way payroll is. One of the key things for business owners too is tax management and tax payment. That's a critical element. This has got to be working well. And if it is working well, a business owner doesn't notice this. This happens seamlessly for them or fairly closely to seamlessly. The second is that there's always a lot of tax reporting and compliance that's required in terms of what's actually happening in the business in terms of payroll taxes. And hopefully, again, if things are working well, the federal and state reporting and compliance requirements are taken care of. That's seamless for the business owner. They're not worrying about it. Key issue for most small business owners if payroll is working well for them. Questions are answered. They're timely and correct. Key issue, business owners, especially in the small business sector, they need to have timely, accurate information, and they need to have it when they need it. A lot of times what you will find is that if that information is delayed, it'll actually start to work in their mind and become a worrisome type of a thing. And especially if it's not accurate information, it really can cause and undermine the business owner's effectiveness in terms of running his business and having happy employees. And then the last element, if everything is working well, payroll can actually add peace of mind to payroll or to a business owner's environment. This is the way I describe it, working with small business owners. There is this ambient stress level that is just in the air regarding payroll for every small business owner. It's just there. And the question that's always on their mind is something like this. Is payroll going to be run correctly today? Did all the direct deposits get done? Was it, if it is being run, are all of the employees going to see what they wanted to see going on? When is the next shoe going to drop? When is the next problem going to come? Believe it or not, business owners, they worry about that kind of stuff all the time. They're actually afraid that if things aren't working very well, they're actually afraid of the next moment happening regarding payroll. And it's an ongoing, every 2 weeks or whenever their pay frequency happens, it's an ongoing fear. If they're doing payroll well, and if a payroll company is handling it and helping a business owner, there actually is peace in the process. And we experience this all the time with clients that come to us. Because of how we manage the process, they're literally, you can look in their eyes and the peace just falls off, or the stress falls right off the table. I had one business owner who's a good friend many years ago when she started payroll with us. She had been battling through this payroll question for her employees, and there had been continually problems every time. And then we started doing payroll for her, and it's just, all of that fell away. And we were about 9 months into the process. I looked at her and I said, so this former payroll company, if it comes over to see you tomorrow and says, you know what, we're going to give you a free years of payroll if you come back to us, would you do it? And she looked at me and she said, no, it's going to cost me too much. That's the way it is for small business owners. Okay, let's talk about the employees. The one thing for the role of payroll in small business, and this is something that I will say it this way, payroll for small business is a focal point for employee satisfaction. Now, there's a lot of little focal points in business in terms of working with payroll, or not working with payroll, but in terms of employee satisfaction in a small business. But this is one of the most critical ones, okay? It is, what you have to understand is that it is a tactile experience in terms of earning income. And I say tactile because I want to, 20 years ago, the way employees were paid was something like this. There would be a bunch of checks that would arrive at a business owner's desk for payroll, and the business owner, he or she, would take it and they would sign their signature on those checks, and then for Marge, he would write a quick note to Marge and say, Marge, thank you. Thank you for the great job you did this week. Little things like that. And that was one way that business owners would connect with their employees and tell them how valuable they were. Obviously now, in a world where mostly direct deposits happening, all of that, it doesn't seem like it's that personal, but it really is. Because what you're dealing with now is people have on their Palm Pilot, or not the Palm Pilot, that's dating me, my old technology area, on their cell phone, they're looking, it is BlackBerry, is it? Oh, good. Oh, wow. I'm an old IT guy, I am old. But on their cell phone, they have the ability to pull up and see what's happening from a direct deposit perspective. They'll have maybe the ability to look and see their pay stubs. But spending money and having money, it's a very visceral, tactile experience. And it's really important for employers to make sure they understand this as they're working with payroll. Two is that from a focal point perspective, it builds confidence about the employer and those they serve in their business for the employee. If payroll is being done well, they're happier and they're able to serve clients better. It is a visible, since all of this information here is visible on the pay stub, it is a focal point of information. So employers are constantly trying to figure out, how do we show the value to our employees about what we're trying to do? And there's benefits programs, there's 401k, there's vacation, there's overtime that you want the employees to be able to see that's happening. This is a very tangible way that employees can experience and see what the employer is trying to do for them. And it is a key way that employees are validated about their importance to the organization. Having payroll run well is a key function for businesses. For us, it's all about clarity, and I'm going to talk about clarity in a second, but I need 2 volunteers. Could somebody come up? Who would like to volunteer? Oh, be bold. Come on. Yeah. I got one. I need another volunteer. Come on up. So I have right before you, and we're going to do this together, I have a payroll problem. Okay? Yeah, no, come on, come here. So I just want to let you see this. This is a payroll problem, and I just want to say, you've got 30 seconds. Can you fix that for me? If you do. No, don't take it apart. You can't do it.
I cannot fit.
Okay, you know there are people who can do this in 5 seconds. They know all aspects of it. Yeah, you know that. Okay, so if you guys can come here real close together, all right. So this is a payroll problem, all right? And you're now looking at the cube from your perspective, okay? What sides do you see of the cube? What sides of the problem?
Sides, I see that.
Okay, you see that. Which sides do you see?
Sides.
2 sides, okay. I just want to let you know that color right there is the key to solving this whole thing. Mm-hmm. Okay? You know that. That's so for you. Solve it. You can't do. No, you can't look. You can't look at it. I didn't say you could see that.
I can't solve it from here.
Okay, why can't you solve it?
I cannot see all the sides.
That's the way it is. Thank you, guys. That's exactly it. Why don't you go sit down? That's the way payroll is in a small business, guys. It is very complex. It's hard to understand, and everybody has their perspective of what they think they see, but they never see the backside. And one thing you never see with small business owners is the bottom side. They never show it. So to be able to solve a lot of times payroll problems, sometimes you have experts that can actually solve it all, but usually what you need to do is bring a team like us together, like the people that are presenting today, and they have to be able to add their part and their piece into the conversation to say, this is how it really looks on my side, this is how it looks on my side, and then we work together to make it work right. That's the way payroll is. So here's a question for you. What's the difference between payroll today versus payroll 20 years ago? Payroll 20 years ago was a lot smaller and a lot easier. Okay? Here's the next question. What's it going to be like here in a few years? The whole world is changing again in payroll, guys. The complexity that has been there is about to go exponentially larger again. All right? So how do you deal with all of this? Well, from my perspective, this is a little mantra that we have in our business. It's all about clarity. Clarity is bringing expertise together to clearly understand the problem so that we can clearly articulate what needs to happen so we can clearly make sure we get it done. So clarity brings the opportunity to understand. Understanding brings an opportunity for peace of mind. And we in our business, we're all about peace of mind. We're about solving problems, and we're about bringing peace to the process of payroll so that it's well organized and clients are happy. So here's what I want to talk about. Bringing peace of mind to payroll. So in any kind of an experience with a business owner and employees, and I'm going to talk about both at the same time for different issues, there are certain key factors that have to be required in certain things to make sure that payroll is running well and to make sure that there is peace of mind in an organization. How am I doing on time? 5 minutes. Oh, you're kidding. All right, I'm going long. I'll talk about a couple of them. First of all, sense of urgency. Oh no, we're not going to do 3, we'll do 5. Sense of urgency is critical. If in your circumstance you're finding that you're working with business partners that don't have a sense of urgency, you need to find new business partners. Okay? Good example, Jerry Wind, Jerry, is a guy that I've been working, been doing payroll for him for 8 years. I was one of his crew leads when he was running his painting company. I was one of his crew leads, and that's how I worked my way through college. So when I started my business, Jerry and I talked together, and now we do payroll for him. He had been working, when we started working with him, he had been working with the state of Minnesota and his previous payroll provider. He had been working with them for 9 months to be able to resolve just some fairly simple issues with the state of Minnesota in terms of taxes. They couldn't get it done. And even calling frequently both to the provider as well as to the state of Minnesota, confusion reigned, and they couldn't get it done. We got involved, and I was able to help Jerry. Within a week, we had the whole thing resolved. We knew what the problem was. We told him what the process was to get it resolved, and we got it done. But if you're working with people who don't have a sense of urgency or ownership about problems, guess what? You should find somebody else, okay? This is the kind of thing from an employee perspective, it's really important because if you've got a business owner who's distracted with problems, they're not going to be as invested in the business, they're not going to be able to grow the business the way they need, and they're not going to have as much time for you, and they're not going to have as much time for you as they need as an employee. Cash flow, we can talk about impounding. We don't impound. Impounding is the moment when payroll companies run payroll for a client, and they capture all of the taxes and all of the money at the time that they run payroll. They capture all those funds and they keep them in their bank account. Impounding is one of the key things that actually inhibits for very, very small businesses cash flow. Okay? That's a problem. If you're a really small business and you have somebody who's impounding your funds, you're actually losing control of your funds anywhere from 45 to 90 days. The funds are actually not due to the state and Fed for 45 to 90 days. That's a problem. If you can find a way to increase your cash flow, I think most business owners would be happy with that. Why is that important to employees? Because they get paid on time. Okay? Uncertainty on hiring, I'll cover this very quick. I can't tell you, this is actually for new businesses that are starting out. When the business tells an employer that it's time to hire, this is actually one of the greatest fears that they have, the first time that they ever bring on their first employee. I have had business owners actually sitting with me at coffee, weeping across a table from me because they are so afraid of hiring their first employee. And a lot of what we end up doing with our clients is actually helping them, when they're really small, helping them through that process so they don't have to worry about it and they know what it looks like, and we answer all of the problems and concerns. And if we don't have the answers, that's when we get Cindy and Becky involved, and we give them what they need so they can be peacefully ready to take on the responsibility of having somebody else on their team. Frequency of payroll. I'm almost done, Pat. The frequency of payroll, believe it or not, this is something that really has to be fine-tuned. A lot of times what I find in small businesses is that the business owners think there are certain ways that they want to pay, and they find that there's actually ways that maybe if they're running a monthly payroll, they can actually save money on payroll costs by running payroll on monthly. But what they don't consider is how do the employees want to be paid and what is their expectation of how they should be paid. So a good example of this is something like this. I was working with a concrete company. They do cementing. It's all seasonal work. But with that concrete company, their employees had to be paid weekly. Absolutely weekly. If it was 2 weeks or a monthly, they would end up losing the employees. They would go to other concrete companies and they would never have the employees that they needed. There are expectations that employees have about how frequently they need to be paid. And frequency on payroll is actually something that needs to be fine-tuned frequently to make sure it's meeting the expectations of the employee, and also doing it in such a way that it's not too onerous from a cost perspective for the business owner. Accuracy. I had one client of ours that started with us 6 years ago. Her name is Laura. She owns a landscaping and snow removal business. Laura walked up to me one day. We were in a network meeting, and she looked at me and she started to cry. And I'm saying, Laura, what's going on here? And her comment was, I just lost our key employee. He just quit. I said, what happened? And she goes, the payroll company we were using had so many errors with his payroll. In particular, it was his payroll. He started to believe that it wasn't an issue where the payroll company was making a mistake. It was an issue that I didn't have the integrity to pay him what was due. And so he stopped trusting me that we were trying to do the right thing, and he quit. We just lost our key employee, and I'm heartbroken. That happens with payroll. Accuracy, if you're not experiencing accuracy or getting this part of the equation right, this will be one of the fastest ways to lose employees out there. And timeliness, people need to be paid on time. I can explain more on that, but we're out of time, and Pat is pacing in the back of the room. Manage transitions, again, if you're moving from one payroll company to the next for some reason, or starting out for the first time, talk to somebody who actually manages the process. A lot of times what you'll find is that here's a little key fact for you. For businesses that start payroll for the first time, the number one thing that helps them to be successful and guarantees their success is actually accurate transition and being set up on the payroll company's systems. There are a number of companies out there that don't manage this process. So what ends up happening is that setups are done incompletely, and when they're done incompletely, payroll is done inconsistently and wrongly consistently throughout the process. And if they don't have a good process where people own the process of going back and fixing payroll, it will go on for years, and I have lots of horror stories to talk about that kind of stuff. So if you're going to be doing a transition to payroll, manage the find out somebody who understands how to manage what that transition looks like. And then the final thing I was going to say, in all things, this is our mantra at the office: we are here to serve. So however we can be of service, that's what we're here to do. That's it. Thanks, Pat.